When I was in high school, I went to high school in Phoenix, Arizona, and the guy that was like one of the two main drummers in our school that was floating around all the bands, and he moved to Athens to be the drummer for Seven Simons. Yeah, he and I got into anime real early on too. We were like some of the first fans of anime, so we had like, when your video came out that had the Space Adventure Cobra and stuff, we were like, oh, look, check
Oh,
this
that's
dude
so
out,
great. Well, there
yeah.
were not too many people that knew about that stuff before that time. And isn't it amazing how it became just worldwide normal, thing of pop culture after that? By the time it was 10 years later, it
Yeah.
just was so influential in all aspects, of media. It was pretty cool to see that happen.
And then I saw you coming my way. Don't you need to be backing me on with a good friend? Oh, just honey, believe me.
Yeah,
At the time that I got into it, it was just like, animation from Mars or something. It was so beautiful and weird, kind of,
Yeah.
That's what attracted myself and my then girlfriend, who's my wife now, Lisa. We both kind of got into it together around that time.
Yeah, you guys have been together a really long time too,
We
right?
have, yeah, we've
Over.
been married. I believe it's, God, is it going to be 28 years this year? I'm trying to think. 27. It might be 27. Yeah, the next month.
It's good to be married. I've been married for 23 years.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's great. I mean, it's not easy for everyone, I really lucked out.
I want to talk to you about process too, and
Okay.
and connection. So it seems that you have a really unique way of at once hitting on things that are like really huge conceptually, and then breaking them down to the really simple connection elements of them. So like, there's a lot of references to universal powers, challenge God, the universe brought us together for this reason, or something split us apart. You talk about space a lot, which is awesome. But then everything seems to really break down to the simple connection between you and that one other person, and
Yeah.
and also in that too, that's sort of how you appeal to, it seems to me anyways, how you appeal to your how you make your appeal to your audience too, is you're saying this is the connection that I'm sharing with you.
Well, I was never the kind of person where like I wanted to be a performer. I was more of an introvert in that way. Any idea of doing that sort of scared me. I was never like, look at me, I need to have attention. And so I think when I learned to make music, I did it in a really personal and kind of private way. And I think that sort of led to that me and you kind of a little more isolated kind of way of looking at my relationship to the world, even, yeah, I always thought there was a little bit of like a me and you where I'm kind of whispering it in your ear. And I knew that that was different than a lot of other musicians. I could tell, that's a little bit different. People sometimes would ask me early on, why do you only write about relationships or something? I was never really like a story songwriter or someone that wrote about other imaginary people. Even though I've written tons of songs that weren't my specific situation, I still, approach them as though it was my personal kind of thing, going on through those feelings. I suffer from bipolar disorder, and I
Mhm.
went a long time before I was diagnosed or treated, a really long time. It wasn't until, well, now it's, probably 18, 19 years ago. But, that wasn't till the new millennium.
Mhm.
And I think I was less able to connect with the audience, at least um, for me to appreciate that connection as easily early on. I would be more like inside myself. I had more sort of anger and more fear, and I would, drink before I played, and kind of which there's nothing wrong with, but it was kind of like to steel myself to go out and do it, and I would get sort of mad at like the monitors or something. It was like all, my weirdness kind of popping out because I didn't know, what it was at the time. And I made this album, Altered Beast, the album after Girlfriend, and
Mhm.
it I felt like I was a split personality, that it was like a monster guy and a nice loving person or something, and they more and more those two things were separated for me. But once I understood it better and got treated, I realized, I felt more of as a whole person, that I could sort of open up and look out to an audience and really feel what they were feeling and feel that connection between us. And so that I came to love playing live and love going out and and seeing fans and being able to open up and accept the things they felt, and see how we connected in that way. And I think over time, because a Girlfriend had this staying power, I knew it was because of that personal side of it.
Mhm.
It meant something to people beyond um, just being a record, but more they felt like it touched on their own personal experiences, And I always felt like that was a real strength about it, But I didn't have to try to be that way. That's just kind of the way I was. And but my ability now to see it and experience it is really much more developed than it was early on.
That's cool. That's the one thing I really like about getting older, is just like having the patience to see things and
Yeah,
not feeling like you have to try to force things through.
yeah, I agree totally. I mean, I feel a softening, but not in a bad way. I just feel more tolerant of everybody, more open minded. Um, you know, the other thing is, when you're older, you aren't as beholden to like try to define yourself by, what you think is cool and what you don't like. You know, um, now I might hear, a piece of music, and it's something that like I wouldn't have cared about hearing when I was younger, because it didn't fit in with whatever my rigid ideas were of what I liked. But now I hear things and I can hear what's great about them, even if they're not kind of my thing.
Yeah.
And you can feel, and I you talk about space and things, I was a junior astronomer, when I was, 9 or 10 years old or whatever. I
Okay.
um, called the Jet Propulsion Laboratory when the first uh, Mars rovers landed, and I, asked if Carl Sagan was there, even
Cool.
though he probably wouldn't have been there. And they sent me, I still have it, this a big cardboard black and white panoramic uh, photo of the surface of Mars. And,
Uh,
so I always was really interested in space and kind of the universe. And over time, it took over, I would say pretty young, I felt sort of like I was an atheist, but the universe took over for God for me, and
Mhm.
in a thing that I could feel awe about, that I knew made me, you know what I mean? That whole idea of we're made of the stuff of stardust, you know, is really appealing to me.
It's the
And
force, man.
yeah, and you
It
know
is.
that that's another thing about getting older, is just sort of feeling a part of that,
Mhm.
because we're small and we're insignificant kind of, but if you can have that awe of, you know, how it happened, it sort of gives you a grounding, you know.
Yeah, yeah. There's like three base elements, right? And it's in
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
We are all those things.
exactly.
Here in Tucson, the Mars rovers were largely designed and built here, and a lot of the telescopes have our lenses and stuff in them around the world too. And I swear the other day, when I don't know if you got to see this yet, but the first sounds from Mars,
Yeah,
the
sure.
re- I swear to God, the first thing that I thought of was that where you get love was going to be what was actually playing on Mars.
Oh, that's funny.
They've got to
Yeah,
be listening to Matthew Sweet up there, man.
you know, there's like a bunch of people's names on the new rover. Like they collected 1 million names or something, and I think we might have gotten on that list, but I'm not sure. I can't really
Uh,
remember. So
oh,
I'm
that's
kind of
cool.
hoping my name is up there on it. Not for
That's
any
neat.
real reason, but it's cool. But wow, I mean, this has been the greatest of the rover missions so far. The footage of it landing, you know, is just incredible. The resolution of its cameras, if you've seen
Yeah, yeah.
the big panorama, that's so clear. I have it on as a desktop picture on my iMac in front of me, and you know, I one of the things I did with my success in music is I used it to get into and learn about things that I was a fan of, kind of, you know. I was like, you know, that's how I'm gonna use it, you know.
Cool.
And so I was able to go to JPL over the years a bunch of times. You know, I did make an album called Blue Sky on Mars, a
Yeah, I
term
love
that
that.
actually came from Total Recall. It was the name of the recall experience that the main character went through, and it ends with, you know, they have the air on Mars,
The
and it's
air on
blue
Mars.
sky on Mars, kind of. And you know, I decided I'll use photos from the Mars missions, and I got to go to JPL and go through their archives and look at all these photos. And then the the one that landed and there was water ice underneath it, I got to visit JPL during that. It's just blows my mind every time they have new technologies for landing them, you know, and it just seems so precarious. Like, is this way going to work? You know, the one that had the big bunch of airbags all around it, you know, and it
Yeah.
bounced,
Giant
and
bouncy ball. Yeah.
this one seemed especially hard to me. Like, you know, they're going to lower it on these wires and this stuff. It's like, God, I hope it works, you know.
And it
So
was
I
just
love it.
like
I love
perfect.
seeing how happy they are, you know, in the control room when they land stuff. You know, it's really a cool thing.
How do you decide musically um how you want to collaborate, or with whom you want to collaborate, like the stuff you did with Susanna Hoffs and um uh, other people throughout the years? Is it sort of like an organic thing, like it comes together, or do you be like, are you like, that I wrote this thing and that this person that's out there in the world would fit with this? So how does it work for you when you decide to do your collaboration stuff?
Well, I think that usually it's more through circumstance. Usually, I didn't set out to find that person. You know, in a couple cases, I did. In Altered Beast, there's a guy named Nicky Hopkins, incredible British piano player who plays a lot on that album. And I knew him myself mostly through the solo album that he made. And, at some point in the making of Altered Beast, I just was like, what about Nicky Hopkins? And my management just found him. He was there in LA, and he came and he's just one of the most amazing, brilliant musical people I ever worked with, But I would say that I don't tend to sit around thinking of people who would be good on stuff very often. Sometimes sometimes I have thought, get so and so. It's usually because there's someone I meet rather than the other way around. And with Susanna, we knew each other for a long time before we worked together in that way. We met pretty early on. I think Fred Marr had worked with her on some stuff, and I kind of met her on the phone probably around the time we were making Girlfriend. And then, she had me sing on something once I lived in LA. But we really started to get to know each other through the Austin Powers project. She brought Mike Myers to a show of mine, and we all went out for dinner. And then we started going and hanging out at Mike's house with Mike and his then wife, Robin. And, Mike was just starting to develop that character. And we had these jam sessions where he would sing in, British accent like he was Austin Powers, and then like one night we came over and he came to the door and he had the teeth, like it sort of like slowly like appeared before us. And so we ended up having this band, Ming Qi, that was sort of fictitious, but it was kind of real because we really all sort of jammed. And so that was when Susanna and I got to know each other the most, before the Under the Covers thing. And she got a hold of me, and she'd actually been speaking to people at Shout Factory. And there was a guy, Sean Amos, there, wonderful guy and also musician. And Sean really came to us and said, will you make these covers records? He sort of had the concept for it. And so we were like, sure, because it was a way to really easily and quickly try something together in our home studio. So I helped her set up some gear at her house, and we did a 60s one. And then they wanted to call it Volume 1. And we're like, you mean we're going to do another one, like Volume 1? And so then we did a 70s and an 80s eventually. We're even going to do a 90s one, I think, pretty soon. We've been talking about it. Sue's a really good player as well, plays guitar great and great singer, a lot of good ideas. So we just became really good friends, and she's like kind of like a sister to me. It's lonely being a solo artist. And I always look to my bands, and in the case of the Susanna thing, a way to experience music with some other people. So you're not just alone. There's not anyone you can kind of talk to about, what you're going through, those kind of collaborations and having a band that you tour with, for me, allowed me to feel like I had some, support and some other friends,
The thing I dig about that too, from my own self, is, when you create something, it has that meaning for you and it has that purpose for you, and then you hear somebody else's take on it, and you're like, oh, I never thought of it like that, or it's really interesting the way that they phrased that, or that was a really, oh, you came into it just a beat before I thought you were going to. That was an interesting approach. I dig on, and I think I kind of fought that a little bit when I was younger. Like, I wanted
you'd
like
want
more,
them to do it a certain way.
Yeah, and then later on, I kind of like you have to let it go walk on its own, and
yeah, for
does.
sure. And I learned that early on. When you go in and I learned that if there's something you want a specific way and you know how to play it, do it yourself. Don't try to get some other person to learn it and like be, breaking their back trying to get them to do it exactly.
Why
I
can't you be
remember,
me?
yeah, I remember even on Girlfriend, like on Evangeline, there's like this kind of repetitive riff that's a leady kind of thing. And we ended up, I would play those and then give the guitar to Richard, and then Richard would do the real leads and everything. And so I learned that early on, let people be free and do what they do and hear it the way they hear it. And you get kind of the best results from that. Anytime I was trying with drummers, I was relentless, trying to get them to make it feel like some way I imagined. And I just found much better to just let them do their thing, and pick drummers that you like what they do.
When I'm writing, I truly feel that I'm not writing. Like, I really feel like I'm a radio antenna and I'm picking up what's traveling through the universe at that time, and I'm able to get in on that stream. And if I'm lucky enough, I'll understand what was being said and be able to put it down.
I feel exactly that same way. It was something that really almost bothered me early on in my career when people would say I was a craftsman or whatever, because I felt like I couldn't really claim that, like, because it came out of sort of nowhere. It's like, if I never felt like I was able to kind of nuts and bolts work on, a bunch of different sections and changing it all and kind of working on it in that way. I felt like things popped out more wholly formed than that. That's totally important to have that sort of, it's almost like Zen Buddhism, sort of no mind kind of thing, where you get out of the way and you get in this kind of state where you can just sort of receive. And that always works for me the best in writing.
Do you have to be careful about how you record things and to make sure that you write things down? Because I've like done things and I'll write something at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning that just like pours out, and I'm like, yes, they just totally jived. And then I'll go back to listen to it and I'm like, how the hell did I do that?
Yeah. Yeah. I get that feeling also when a song takes shape, like in recording. Once there's like some stuff on it, then it starts to just feel like magic to me. Like, how did it become this thing? And I can't quite remember, exactly where it came from.
It's almost like it's beyond you, right? It's
yeah.
Like, how did
that
happen?
It's just a magical kind of thing. And that's really appealing to me, and that, I think that's helped me want to keep making music, is that can happen, that it can be a surprise and sort of a delight that comes out of thin air.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the first things I experienced when I got my first multi-track cassette recorder, when I was an early teenager. And I sang a note and then I went on another track and did a harmony note. And that really jazzed me for some reason. It was just a cool thing that made me realize the possibilities of being able to multi-track.
Let's talk about the new album. I was so delighted with this album, and not just from the writing standpoint, but I thought the engineering was really great on it. I thought it had a super robust sound, and I would love for you to tell me, but it really has an analog sound to it in its the richness that comes out. So let's talk about the new album, the inspiration for it, and also the process for it.
I did have one idea, which is that I wanted to try playing lead guitar myself. In terms of what's on it, it's really mostly just rhythm guitar and lead guitar and bass and drums. So that makes it easier to sort of get that kicking kind of feeling. The drums are really loud on it. It's something I learned more and more over the years, that drums can really be quite loud, and if I listen to old records, they often are. Even on, the 60s records I love, on Beatles records, for instance, the drums are really quite loud. And I think that helps give something some beefy sort of feel to it. I don't ever really know what it's going to be like or what it's about, beforehand. That becomes clear when I'm kind of finishing it. It's like, oh, here's what it is.
Our producer Campbell loves Challenge the Gods,
Oh
and
yeah,
he's
I
like,
like that song.
man, that's like the theme for the last couple of years, man. Like, don't wait. Don't,
Yeah,
if there's something down the road, don't do it down the road. Do it now, and go,
yeah,
go challenge the universe right now, and see what's out there, and take what licks come to you if you get them. But
yeah.
you're not going to get the good stuff if you don't stand up and try it.
I had the phrase "challenge the gods" written down somewhere, how it came about is there's a guy named Jason Victor who's played lead guitar with me live quite a bit over the last 3 or 4 years. Well, not last year, and and played on my last couple records before this one. And he's kind of younger than the rest of us, a little bit of a hot shot, kind of like a lot of people want him to play on their stuff. Sometimes I have to book him way in advance because other people want to book him to tour with them and stuff. And so we would kind of joke with him about it, on the road, fully kidding, and he knew this. And one day I said to him, the hubris, just the hubris of you, Jason. And then I went and looked it up in the dictionary, I guess, online, so that I could read it to him. The many ways what hubris kind of means. Yeah. And one of them was to challenge the gods. And I just loved the sound of that kind of. And so I wrote it down. And when I was working on that song, that I just had that little phrase, and that's what it was kind of lyrically born out of.
Rise above, take your place, punch the world in the face. Use your time to rise above. Just do what you wanna do, go where you wanna go. Challenge the gods to act. Believe what you need and no speed right on past the flow. Challenge the gods to act.
It's a really, and I don't think I don't think I've come across a song this year that fits better. How
Well, it's the defiant one. There are different kinds of songs on the record. The first one is sort of a doom song. It's really the Castpaw song, the paw coming down with finality upon a victim. I thought of that almost as being like life. That's the song Blown Away. The second song is like hopeful. It's like, believe, give and it'll come back to you, kind of. And then Challenge the Gods, which comes third, is, rage against everything, challenge the gods, and that's different as well. So I liked the way they all did sort of different things, even though they all kind of had a harder rock feel to them, and my leads and all of that.
I thought you just did a kick-ass job with it.
Oh,
and
thank you.
I really dug the way that you were able to be intimate with your own voice in it, in that you the phrasing of the guitar and the phrasing of your voice were able to complement each other and sort of weave around each other in a different way than we've heard before.
Yeah, and I think that I viewed that as like, this will be the strength, is because I'm the songwriter. I hear certain notes that I'd really like emphasized with the rest of the music. It just was really a satisfying feeling and fun. Like, I would love to do it more. I don't think I could say I'll only play my own leads forevermore, but it was a lot of fun for me, and to think now that's one of the things I can do is exciting.
You've been on a really long, steady trip. You put something out basically every 2 to 3 years since 1986. What Are you planning on something now, or just sort of enjoying the moment?
I think that now I do feel like I'm past Catspaw enough. I'm ready to kind of start writing and working on a record of mine. There are all these other kinds of things floating around. We have some live recordings from way back we might try to release. I even have, a couple projects. There's like a sort of stillborn album that I never, really finished or completed, called Loosey Goosey. And my wife really loves some of the stuff from that. And she's constantly saying, you should put out some version of Loosey Goosey. So maybe I'll do that.
Yeah.
But I think, by the time another year has passed, not only will I have a new record that's just a normal record of mine, but there'll be some other projects that are in the works.
Matthew Sweet, thank you so much for spending so much gracious time with us. I really enjoyed the conversation. It was
same here. It's my pleasure.